finna get your ass the game, man. You know I break it down. Come on, man, you know it's Bain.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Bain Break It Down Forex. It's your boy Big Bain in this thing. You guys guessed it, another week, another opportunity for us to make some money in the Forex market. Let's get right to it. All right, boom. Over on the dollar, guys. Let's see what we got. All right, so this is on our weekly time frame. We close lower than the previous week, right? But we're pretty much, at a swing point, if you will. So looking at the past, right, this is all a support level. Right here is what I'm talking about. All right, it's all a support level. Every time prices got into these levels, we've rejected and rose up, right? So we're in that kind of situation right now with the dollar, where there is potential, right, for the dollar to start rising from this area. All right, but the way we really have to look at it is more short term, right? Because we're just looking at what we're expecting to happen within the week, right? Not all of that time that we see from the past of this particular level, right? It is a factor, right? But if we expect it to rise, what we're looking for is things that are showing us on the lower time frame that we're either changing to uptrend market structure or just in a uptrend, right? So this is where multiple time frame confluence comes in, to where you go and you start getting to the lower time frames. All right, so from the weekly now to the daily, again, you get to see more price action, and we're looking to see if price on the dollar is getting ready to rise or if it's in a uptrend, right, from what we saw on that weekly. And right now, yeah, we respected this level, right, but we consolidated heavily, right? So we didn't respect that level and push up and continue to rise throughout the week. We actually pushed down that week and then consolidated. So that here it is, from the beginning of the week. Monday we dropped, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday we just consolidated. So that is an indication that maybe we can start to rise, but that could also just be what they call a delay or a pause, right? And can turn out to be a continuation. So meaning, again, once the dollar is falling like this and then going sideways, right, it's determining where it wants to go. And we all know that a lot of the news we've been waiting on was delayed, so now it's coming out at a later time. So there is your consolidation with the confusion of what's actually going to happen. So once that data that we need to come out comes out, right, we'll see price make its potential move, right, in whichever direction. But for now, because the dollar has been consolidating, I can just go off of what it did on Friday, which is it swept the high of Thursday but closed back within the range of Thursday. All right, if you guys can see that, I'm just talking about the high of Thursday here, the low of Thursday. This candle swept the high and it stayed within the range, so that tells me that price most likely will continue falling. All right, which is what I'm expecting on the dollar for this week, right, is for it to break below Friday's low, right, at least take it out, maybe aim for Thursday, and then this is a bit of a higher low, right, at the previous week low, right? So this was the lowest it got last week, so it can easily go and hunt the sell side liquidity of these two areas, right? So I'm expecting dollar to do a potential drop, but then from there, let's see what we got on the lower time frame. All right, so if we go and take out that weekly low, do we have imbalance or any liquidity below that? We do, right? So right here, okay, that is engineered liquidity sitting over there. All right, and then we also have this fair value gap that was already taken care of, but if we stretch it out, we can see that again we have potential to take Friday's low, take last week's low, sweep liquidity, and then start to, you know, do some sort of rise on the way up. All right, and you can see that, you know, that's pretty much what I'm expecting. Okay, so just right out the gate on Sunday, Monday, right, I do expect the dollar to push lower, right, taking out these lows of the previous day on Friday and the previous week of last week. All right, getting a little lower, and then from there I'm expecting a rise. All right, so bearish on the dollar. All right, let's get back up. Okay, and over to JPY. So again, looking at it from the weekly, okay, we can see that we broke above the previous week's high, and we got way up here, so that's bullish. All right, going to the daily. All right, and we closed as an inside bar to the previous day, right? So this was Thursday, here's Friday, we closed inside of the range, but we did close a little higher, the body of the candle, right? Opening closed a little higher than it did on Thursday. So that tells me JPY can still rise. All right, looking at it on a lower time frame. All right, and you can see that you have price steady in a uptrend, or still in a uptrend, right? To where we're making higher highs, right? Higher highs, and then higher lows, right? All of our lows are higher. So right now we're kind of at a equal high, right? This is almost like a triple top, right? But the thing about it is, even though you know, we're having a difficult time breaking above, that does not mean that it can't, right? It just means that for now it's having difficulty. So this becomes a waiting game to see if price is going to continue rising higher, or if it's going to start rejecting and falling. All right, as it's failing just a little bit to break highs. So with JPY, right, even though I'm expecting it to take out the previous week high, which is very close by, and then all of this that it's doing is engineering liquidity with all of these candles right next to each other going side by side. So I see that as a buy side sweep, as well as liquidity sitting behind this swing excuse me, right, also as a buy side sweep. So I think we'll get another push up on the JPY out the gate, and then potentially, right, and then, you know, we can get this too, but after that push we may get some movement down, but just right now I don't see it happening just yet. So I'm bullish on the JPY index. That means the JPYs are still going to continue to fall. If you guys remember last week's watch list, I gave you guys the heads up that JPY was going to rise tremendously. It did that specifically, all right, and all of the JPY pairs fell, right? My team caught crazy pips on things like CAD JPY, right? Look at that, just insane, 280 some odd pips the whole week, right? For CHF JPY, same thing, right? EJ, same thing, right? We caught 439 pips, all right? GJ was huge, all right? GJ went over 600 pips last week, all right? And we caught it all, right? UJ or NJ did numbers, and then the big dog, right? UJ, just insane, okay? 438 pips. So I'm getting at, you know, the JPY still has a little more rising to do, so these JPY pairs can fall a little more, all right? But after that, you know, get ready to, you know, put your Uno reverse card out there, right? And get ready to buy the JPY pairs, as the JPY index, after it does the sweep to the upside, potentially getting up here, it will begin to retrace or fall. All right, so again, when you know, and you can take advantage of both sides. All right, I'm bullish on JPY. All right, moving over to odd dollar, and because I'm bearish on the dollar, I do expect the odd dollar to rise. Let's look at it from the daily, kind of see what happened. All right, so we just broke below the low of Thursday, but we, we went right into this FVG. All right, so because we broke, below Thursday's low, we can go a little deeper into that FVG before we, begin to rise. So when you look at the odd dollar on a lower time frame, right here off the 2 hour, we can see that we do have imbalance down here, right? There's a little here. So there's another imbalance here. So there's potential for it to get a little deeper, right? Beginning the week before it begins to rise, because what we really have, right, is this is the pullback, this is the run. So again, this can be the pullback right about to here, and then we can get the run again. What you'll notice is those lows are still getting higher, right? So the more higher lows you make, right, the more you'll be still within an uptrend. All right, so for odd dollar, I do expect it to fall a little bit, but after that, definitely see it rising. All right, it may not fall super deep, it may just begin to rise right out the gate, as it has already touched this fair value gap. But then we can see that FVG is also sitting right above this demand area. Okay, so what could happen is we can just tap right into demand and then take off. All right, so look for those kind of moves on the odd dollar and then try to take advantage of it. All right, but for me, I'm definitely bullish on the odd dollar. All right, moving over to euro dollar, and same exact thing, right? I'm bullish. It is gotten nicely within this fair value gap, but I could still see like a little bit more of a retracement down before we get the rise up, right? Because we're pretty close to the high of, the low of Friday. And the high, we're kind of equal to it all. But this is liquidity sitting here, right? And there's built up liquidity sitting here. So I can see some sort of drop, all right, before we get the rise on euro dollar. So watch out for that. But ultimately, I am still looking to buy euro dollar, as I bought it here, right, made the money, but it's just retracing. And again, I feel like we can have a very nasty retracement where we continue, pop into demand, and then finally take off like that. All right, so it's what I'm looking for on Euro USD. If I get it, I will be loading up for a buy opportunity from here. But there's, it's kind of so much going on. But this is just that first demand area. You have another one here and another one here that, again, EU could potentially get to and sweep. But at some point, you got to make up your mind, right? Which one are you going to take it from? And, run with that. All right. So bullish on Euro USD. Right, going over to pound USD. All right, and same exact thing, we swept the low of Thursday, all right, and we closed higher. So that tells me that GU wants to continue rising, and where we closest to the previous week high, as well as Thursday's high, right? So this is really the low and the high of Friday here. But I was just speaking, what did Friday do in comparison to Thursday? So swept the lows right into probably a point of interest, right? And now it's already ready to go higher. So that week high is the first aim, and then the swing high would be the next aim. So we're looking at potentially 200 pips that we can get on GU, and it has a great buying opportunity on it right now. If we look at it on the lower time frame, right, yes, it did push up a little bit, so you want some sort of retracement, right, or a few candles to go bearish before you get into the buy. But just overall, right, it is good for a buy. Just looking to see where we might have an entry here off the, let's go 30-minute time frame. Okay, so I do see fair value gap sitting right here. everything else looks mitigated, right? We had a fair value gap here, we came back and got that, took off. We had a huge fair value gap here, we came back and took off. So guys, I'm just keeping it simple. All right, if we created another fair value gap, price most likely pull back to that and take off exactly like it's been showing you. All right, it's not rocket science, right? After a while, it just becomes common sense in a way. All right, but that's how I'm going to play GU with the position here at the fair value gap, and it stops a little below it. Aim for that swing. Actually, I'm going to go for that swing high, which is up here. Yep. But even with that, 72 pips for just a 10 pip stop loss is a risk to reward of 1 to 8, right? Almost 1 to 9 is ridiculous, but this is what we'll be aiming for the week, that 211 pips. Looking at it on the 4 hour will make more sense, right? There it is. That is the position on GU, ladies and gents, that will most likely get you paid. All right. Again, easy entry off the lower time frame, but just wait to see that it does it. Some bull candles show up, then pull the trigger. If you buy it right now, that's cool too, but it will probably give you some sort of drop before it rises, so just be on the lookout for that and you'll be good. All right, but GU looks really good for a buying opportunity. Right, over to New Zealand dollar, has the same kind of vibes of GU, right? Took out the lows of Thursday, right here off the daily. Yep, we swept Thursday's low and we close higher, so next week high is the target, and then possibly this swing. So just from here where we are now to up there, it's about 50 pips. So not looking super duper for New Zealand dollar, but here is a swing high that we could potentially rise to, and we're talking 342 pips. All right, so looking pretty good if you ask me, for New Zealand dollar to take that buy right here with a stop right below the previous week low. Aim for that high, you got yourself over 300 pips. Risking just 43 pips, it is ridiculous. All right, bullish on New Zealand dollar. All right, over the dollar CAD. All right, so on Friday we took out the high of Thursday and we closed lower, right? So we should go and take out the lows, and because I am bearish on the dollar, right, I do expect dollar CAD to fall, right? So it kind of lines up, but we'll have to see how it plays out, because it did respect this support level, right, and it's come back in. So there's possibilities that it can continue to rise, and I've heard some things where the US is trying to smooth things over with Canada, right? So when you ease the tension, that typically is good good news for the dollar to make it rise against the Canadian instead of tumble, right? So this is still a little mixy, but I'm going with the dollar falling, so I'm bearish on dollar CAD. All right, over to dollar CHF, same exact thing, right? For Friday we closed as an inside bar. We didn't take the high or the low of Thursday, but I can see from this fair value gap, right? Let me just draw it out so you guys can be with me here. All right, right there from that fair value gap. Okay, we've gotten into it pretty, nicely. All right, and you can see that we're, opening and closing a little lower. Even though we didn't take the high or the low, we still closed lower than than Thursday. So I expect dollar CHF to continue falling, and if I try to get out to a higher time frame to see where that next low is, it's way down here, all right, or way right here. So just measuring from here to there, we're talking 200 and some odd pips on dollar CHF. So there is a pretty penny on the table if we happen to sell $CHF right from where it is now and aim for that 200. All right, here is 195 right here and 200 easy. Okay, on $CHF I am bearish. All right, let's move over to $JPY. And again, like I mentioned, the JPY index still has a little bit more bullish to go, so I do feel like JPY will continue to fall as well, on top of the dollar, giving us a bearish, kind of bias. So we could see UJ, right, drop to this next swing over here for about 300 and something odd pips. I don't think it's going to get that low, but you never know, right? There's plenty of imbalance here. There's more here, right? But I'm thinking we'll probably get to right here first. All right, so we'll come down and we'll sweep below this swing low here and just kind of tap into this one before potentially going back up to fill the imbalance that we have, right? But it's going to be making that decision once you see what price does in this area. For now, I think it's going to definitely get to it, maybe, or potentially blow past it, right? But definitely bearish for now, and then potentially bullish later. All right, guys, so I'm bearish on $JPY. Over to pound odd, I am bearish. All right, so for Friday we took out the high of Thursday, but we tapped right into the supply area. All right, and we started to respect it pretty nicely. So now is a great opportunity for anyone to take a potential sell on this with your stops above the previous week high or right above supply, which again is about 70 pips. But if we get a little deeper, right, like that, way better, 33 pips, and just aim for that swing low, you're looking at 260 some odd pips. This is a pretty good setup on pound odd. All right, right out the gate, that should play out when the week opens. All right, bearish on pound odd. All right, pound cat, let's get back higher. All right, a lot going on with pound cat, but basically Friday we broke the high of Thursday, so that means we potentially want to go higher. Here is some imbalance that we can reach, and then bit of a swing point here. It's hard to really tell, but just going off of this alone, I would say that I'll be bullish on pound cat, but it may just get to here and start to fall again, right? So it's not a whole lot on that bullish bias, right? 50 pips or so. So it's going to be, one of those situations where I'm really probably not going to do anything until it gets into this fair value gap. And then from there, I kind of make a determination, because it does look more bearish when you think about price getting here, right? So we'll pretty much get up in here, reject it, and start to fall, right? There's liquidity here, there's liquidity here, right? And then obviously at the very swing. So that looks more like it, and it lines up with something like pound odd looking bearish, right? You'd expect if pound odd is going to fall, that means the pound is weak, so pairs like pound cat should also fall, right? It lines up in that sense. And yeah, 300, almost 400 pips on the table for pound cat. So scratch the bullish bias, right? I do expect it to rise a little bit, but I'm going to be bearish on pound cat for this reason. All right, so bearish on GC. Over to pound CHF. All right, swept the low of Thursday, a lot of consolidation, but still overall downtrend market structure. We are at a bit of a support level as well here, so this gets tricky. All right, need to look at it on a lower time frame. Okay, now what I can see is that looks like we had a bit of a structural change, right, from down to up. We kind of broke a strong high right here with this candle, and then we've made a retracement for that up move. So this actually looks pretty bullish to me, but it's still mixed from just looking at what happened here. So that's your run, your pullback, your run. This is your pullback. So breaking this low right here, right? Again, there is our supply area that we tapped into nicely, and we started heading down, but we just, you know, started consolidating. We slowed down. So that is screaming bearish, right? Still can drop, but because we've, you know, just kind of respected this, I can see some little bit of a push up, maybe not tapping back into supply here, but just a little push up, possibly taking out Friday's high before we start to drop. All right, so, you know, I may change my mind on this one like I did on pound CAD for it to be bearish, but I definitely want to see, you know, how price reacts you know, in these areas before I take or before I'm fully bearish on pound CHF, because if it breaks above the weekly high, then we're definitely, you know, going to be bullish at that point, right? But a lot needs to happen in order for me to make a more concrete decision on pound CHF. So for now, just waiting for it to play out a little more, and then you know, I'll know what to do after that. All right, but undecided on pound CHF for now. All right, GJ, just like I mentioned a bunch of times, the dollar or the JPY index looks like it's still going to rise. So I'm expecting GJ to just go ahead and sweep all of the sell side liquidity that it has here before potentially looking for that buy opportunity. All right, I'm bearish on GJ. And just to mention, we could just take off, right? We can start that retracement on GJ as well, right? But you know, the buying will come, but we need more confirmation, and we just don't have it yet. So that's why we are staying bearish, right, until we get that, and then from there we'll definitely be bullish because it is expected. All right, over to pound New Zealand. All right, let's look at it from the daily. And it had a major drop here. All right, now is, you know, at a bit of a support level, and then it is also broken above Thursday's high, right? So now that tells us, you know, price wants to continue rising on pound New Zealand, coming from a support area. So, you know, here we go, right? Trying to determine if we have what we need to get into the buy. And so far it looks like we just got a shift, right, in the structure, but it's not, you know, super clear, right? Because you got a lot of wickage, and the body of the candle really isn't above the wickage, right? So it's still giving bearish vibes because of that, with this being your potential supply area. All right, so again, looking at it from a lower time frame, right, you can see that push down has broken these lows, right, making this new low. This is all the retracement back into that supply area. All right, so we could once again continue falling, right, even though, you know, we're at that major support level where we could reverse. We just don't have enough yet, right? We need to get above the previous week's high, and then from there we'll probably have what we need to succeed in purchasing pound NZD. All right, bars intended. Okay, so bearish, all right, until you know, we break above and respect this supply as, or this resistance as support, and then some bull candles show up. All right, so bearish on pound New Zealand. All right, moving over to silver. All right, here's what I'm looking for. All right, is what I'm looking at. But silver is a major payday, all right, for everyone if you know how to play it right. All right, so let's get it from the top on the daily. All right, you guys see that parabolic move, and then all in one day it, you know, took care of all of that from a correction standpoint, right? Acted like it was going to go up a little bit, but this was just, you know, correction. And then here's the continuation that swept or mitigated all the imbalance that set, you know, in that push up. So it showed us that nicely with the wick, and then it started to rise. But again, because we technically kind of broke this low, made a new low, this is all the pullback. So this is all still bearish, right? And that's the scary part, right? Is that you know, you're still seeing a little bit of bearishness here in silver, to where at least from the daily time frame, you did not really get a change of character, change of market structure, change in the state of delivery, right? They're all synonymous, but you know, a lot of you get lost in the sauce because you hear it told to you so many different ways that, you know, you try to figure out each one, and then at the end of the road you figure out they're all the same. So, you know, yeah, mine's blown, right? But all in all, you know, we have not changed from down to up, right? So that's, you know, concerning if you want to buy, right? So with that, you want to see some sort of change, right, from down to up. And you may not, again, see it on the higher time frame yet, right? But if you don't, you know, that's okay, because you may not be a swing trader, right? That's where that type of confirmation weighs more, okay? But to get the shift, right, you can go down to the lower time frame. So on Friday, we took out the low of Thursday and we closed higher. So that means we want to go higher, right? But let's look at the 4 hour and see if we have any bullish structure. All right. And right now, right, it doesn't look, it's very mixed. It's just mixed, guys. It's just hard to tell you that this is good bullish structure right here, right? This was really the retracement, right? So all of this is the run, you know, the run phase. So we could still be heading down on silver, right? So I'm going to be watching that very carefully to see if we continue heading down, right? And then if we get any bit of structural change from that, right? So coming down, tapping into, you know, whatever support or point of interest in that wick, right? Creating this lower high, creating this lower low, and then eventually coming and breaking above that lower high. If I get that, then I'm going to be super hype, super ready to buy silver, because it is, you know, absolutely going to, you know, do a retracement and then explode up back to the top for just crazy amount of money on any lot size, from a micro to a standard, you know, getting back up to looks like 120, right? So needless to say, I'm temporarily bearish on silver, but I'm overall bullish on silver. I just need confirmation to show up and everything will be all good. All right, but bearish for now on silver. All right, over to gold. So same, you know, kind of situation, right? I know that we've, you know, mitigated here and we started to rise, but this high is lower, right? So this is the lower high, this is a higher low, right? That's mixy. Okay, so then we go push up again and we kind of make a higher high, like barely, right? We're breaking above this high, we're making a higher high, but it's barely, right? So that looks bullish, but then here's the correction. Okay, here's a fair value gap that has not been mitigated. All right, right there. So once again, because price is still below, you know, it's not really a strong new high, right? So these are like equal highs, if you will, right? This one and this one, they're like equal. So if this is the run and all of this is the pullback, well, then next is the run. So I'm expecting gold to tap into this FVG, right? Hopefully don't get any lower than that, okay? And from there, right, is where I'm expecting gold to give me some sort of break above a strong high, right? And now I'm bullish, right? But then it's going to give, it's going to give one more pullback, right? And once that happens, then I can buy it at that low point and expect for it to continue to rise, getting right back up to about 5,600 and giving us another huge payday on gold. All right, so what I'm looking for, right, the drop, right, the change, the retracement, and right then and there, ladies and gents, it's off to the races. All right, heavily looking into gold and silver playing out the way I spoke about them, because they will definitely create huge payouts. All right, so bullish on gold, temporarily bearish, right, but then bullish on gold. Right, over the NAS. So if you guys remember, I told you we might get the drop, and boy did natural gas drop. I don't know if I said NAS before, but I meant natural gas. All right, so again, just a huge drop on natural gas, and now we're kind of sitting between or sitting at a support level where it's right above a demand area and imbalance. So we can still see gas do one of these numbers before potentially turning around and rising. All right, so I'm still bearish on natural gas temporarily, right, till it gets to demand, and then from there I want to see what it does. If it gives me a shift to the upside in the structure, then I will definitely be buying, as we have huge imbalance areas to fill on the upside with natural gas. All right, so bearish but then bullish on natural gas. Over to oil, I am bullish. All right, so looking at it from the daily, all right, we have nice market structure that is easily readable, right? So we made the run, the pullback, the run, the pullback. Here we make the run. We didn't really get above the high, so we started to play around a little bit, right? But on Friday we swept Thursday's low and we closed higher. So price, and we almost swept the previous week's low, but actually I think we did sweep the previous week low, but this is just the low from last week. Regardless, we close higher, so I expect price to go for Thursday's high, right, Friday's high, then Thursday's high, and then the previous week's high. And if we do, we're looking at potentially a $2 to $3 move on oil, which is 200 to 300 pips easily. But it is now on its way to make that new run, which most of the time breaks that previous high and goes and creates a new high. So the real move is not just a $3 move, it's more of a $7 move on oil, and who knows, potentially higher, right? You can have days like this over here on June 23rd of 2025 where you see oil push almost 11 points. All right, that's over 1,000 pips, right, in 2 days, right? Really was half of that was more like a day, right? And you can get the same thing to happen here, right? So from here up, $11 is right there, and we go and look at it, voila, right? We can get right back up to that area, guys. You can get 1,000 pips on oil, which is crazy money, again, on any lot size that you put on it, because oil pays 100 pips for every dollar move. All right, and that's an $11 move. You do the math. All right, bullish on oil. All right, SPY. All right, so I don't really know. SPY very mixed, but if I had to pick a side, I would go bullish, right? We swept the low of Thursday, and we did close higher, barely, but we closed higher. So I would expect for price to go and take out Friday's high, possibly Thursday and the previous week, especially with the dollar looking so bearish. All right, so I'll have a position something similar to this, getting my stop loss right below the previous week's low for about 40 points, aiming for the high of last week and getting about 164 points on SPY. I am bullish. All right, over to NAS. Okay, so NAS did the same thing, swept Thursday's low, right? And pretty much I can tell, that it probably tapped into, this imbalance. To the T. All right, so now, right, we have NAS where it is done a sweep of liquidity and balanced out price, and then gave us a bullish engulfing candle followed by a nice retracement, all on that at the end of the week. So a position would be like this, stops below previous week, again aim for the weekly high. You're looking at basically 700 pips on the dot. All right, for 700 points on the dot for NAS. All right, with potential, okay, for it to go even higher than that, right, up to this particular high, maybe this one, right? So just anywhere from 700 to 1200 to 1500 points is what we can get on NAS right out the gate, because it is ready to go. I am bullish on NAS. All right, last but not least, US 30, and it looks like, from when we broke above, we had, like I told you guys, we had a lot of consolidation here, and then we broke out, and I said, okay, because we had that massive breakout, we can have the retracement. Guess what? My team caught the retracement, all nice and lovely, right? We got almost 1100 points on that as it went to fill this huge imbalance here to the left. All right, so that's all taken care of, right? And now looking at it from the daily, let's see what it did. It also swept the low of Friday and got deeper into that fair value gap that I drew out on the 4 hour. So now that it's closed above, we can expect price to continue rising. And from where price is to that previous high is another 1,000 points on US 30, guys. So, I mean, we have great opportunity, great setups on these indices to really, really eat. All right. And the same is going to be for the commodities, gold and silver. If you ask me, right, they will also do a nice rise. So a position like this, right, with your stops below the previous week low is good, right? And then aiming right up there, giving yourself almost a 1 to 3 risk to reward is a very good trade opportunity on US 30. I'm bullish. All right, guys. So action packed, right? It's just up to you how you're gonna, go about playing it, right? But I'm lacing you up. All right, just take advantage. All right, let your friends and family know, get them in the mix. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we could talk about it in the chat. If there's anything else that I didn't cover that you guys see great opportunities on, or just want to know, what the analyst is, all right, let me know. Okay, but in the meantime, in between time, y'all know what it is. It's your boy. Peace.
Wanna get money? Wanna get paid? Master Forex, like a sensei? Then you know you gotta come and swing my way. And if you wanna fast forward, hit replay.